So this is my makeup for recap two, which covers a couple of the chapters. I'm going to do a quick term from chapter four: high context cultures, cultures like China, Japan, or any part of Asia that use very vague communication strategies in their speech to to convey very important messages. So they're not very direct. As low context cultures like the United States, they're very almost indirect at a point because they're very vague in the way they speak. They the way I used to see it, I always thought that most cultures were direct. I never knew there was really a low context culture. I just thought everyone was direct in what they wanted to say. I actually never knew that there's some places where they're not very direct in how they speak. That's something that's never occurred to me. What I actually know now, there's countries like Asia that are very high context that don't want to be very direct or don't or not used to having that direct speech pattern. So now what I'm gonna do with that is I'm gonna actually when I visit China in the future that I'm not gonna actually well, I'll keep those cues up for when they're not when anyone from China talks to me. I'll keep those cues so if I know that they're not being very direct, that it's okay, that they're not trying to trick me or anything like that. So basically, going on to chapter five, basically using you, I, and we language. For me, when I used to do is I always used to use a lot of I language or a lot of you language. I would always say, "Oh, I'm not doing well," or "You're not doing your job." I'd always use that type of language, and I never actually learned that the value of we language, which I just learned. We language is very important because it doesn't basically show that you're taking ownership or the other person's taking ownership. You're both taking ownership and you're taking that connecting ownership together and you're both working together towards making a better effort in the future, which I think is very, very good to use we language. I'm actually going to start using a lot more we language now since I learned that information because it seems to be very effective because you're not telling the other person that they're the one who's the issue or I'm the one who needs something to be fixed. It's something you can both collaborate together, and it doesn't make the other person feel uncomfortable. Going on to chapter six, using regulators. For example, substituting a uh, or basically it's well, actually, no. I actually switched my term. I'm actually doing eye contact. The one of the biggest things with eye contact is, well, of course, having eye contact with the audience. So when I used to do a speech in the past, I used to actually you stare. I would usually stare down maybe one or two people in the speech. So one guy from the left or like one girl from the right, for example, and I would just look at those two people during my entire speech, and I thought that was perfectly okay because I found the people I was gonna look to because honestly I knew them, so that's why I would do that because I knew them. I felt comfortable. What I now know is that if I really, for example, I don't actually know anyone during the speech, and if I just stare down at two people, it just kind of looks like I'm talking to only them two, and I'm not talking to the entire audience, which can A, make them feel very uncomfortable, and B, it's gonna lower my effectiveness in my speech because my audience is not gonna feel connected because I'm only looking at two people. So what I'm gonna do is in the future, actually look down at a couple people during the room, maybe a couple people in the back, in the middle, in the front, on the sides, any direction really, just to try to convey um, my speech that I'm talking to everyone else in the room, so I can make them feel included in it as well. Because just looking at two people is just not very effective. And now since I know that, that's what I'm going to do.